Hi friends, welcome back to Julie at Home. Today's video is an update on my curriculum planning, and it's specifically going to be about history. If you're new here, welcome. I have a 7-year-old who's going into 2nd grade this year, a 5-year-old who will be in kindergarten, and a baby who is currently sleeping on my back, which is how I can make this video. So this year is Middle Ages, and I believe where we left off was I had made a giant to-do list split up by subject, and I had started talking about history a little bit, that I was doing Story of the World, Volume 2, and supplementing with some other resources, and specifically resources about Native Americans pre-Columbus. So I have made several adjustments, so I have a lot to share here, and I'm going to start by just sharing with you what my plan is for the year, and then I will go into more of an explanation of how and why, I guess, afterwards. Okay, so again, this is Middle Ages, roughly from the year 500 to 1600 AD or CE. This kind of varies a bit, and I'll get into that a little bit. So I'll see if I can get you a close-up of these. These are just, so I have a page for each term. First, a quick note, if you've been watching my whole curriculum planning videos, I did tweak my terms a little bit as well. I combined July with August and September, and then I made October, November the first part of term 2, and January, February the second part of term 2, and then March through May is term 3. That way each term is approximately 12 weeks with an exam week at the exam week in week 12. However, for term 2, because it's split up with a big holiday break in the middle, I made an exam week on week 6 and then another one at the end of February. So just a quick side note, it's pretty much the same weeks I had planned, but I just kind of reorganized my thinking on the terms, and we do take breaks in the middle of terms. And so I try to mark on the sheet, like you can see here, where we're taking a break, just so I know that that's a break week. And I also marked down on here where we're doing exams. So I tried not to schedule anything for exam week, even though the way I'm planning on doing exams, I'm not planning on taking up the whole week. I'm going to be doing a Charlotte Mason style exam, though not exactly how Charlotte Mason would do. And I'm still kind of playing around with this, so I'm sure that'll be a topic of another video. But I just wanted to put that out there before I start talking about my terms and confuse all of you who watch my other videos. So this is term 1. And you can see for each week here, I put the week number and the date, the Monday of that week. And I've done that for all the terms and listed what I want to cover that week. Now, again, if you've been watching for a while, you know I like to plan really thoroughly and then be flexible in the plan. So some of these might move around a little bit, just based on what we get to in a given week, or, you know, things come up, which is one of the reasons I put break weeks and exam weeks in there, because I prefer not to spill over into a break week, but we'll see how it goes. But exam week can also kind of be a catch-up week. So each week, or a vast majority of them, have a chapter from Story of the World or another curriculum, Curiosity Chronicles, or both. And I will tell you more about Curiosity Chronicles in just a little bit. But it has that, and then most of them also have some other resources as well. Some picture books, which are mostly on this shelf here behind me. And also I'm also incorporating this book before Columbus. And so that this doesn't really go chronological, and it also doesn't stay in one area of the Americas. It kind of jumps around a bit. So for right now, what I did is I kind of matched the chapters in here to what we were doing roughly otherwise in my plan, but it's not perfect, and there are some areas that something in here that didn't match anything we had in here, which is good. We should still cover it. So I tried to put it on a lighter week that made sense. So I will be skipping around a little bit in this, and maybe when I do it again in the future, more American history, I might just read through it for the kids in order. And then there's also some art and activities included in this list as well. I do want to find some more videos, mainly because my kids really like them, but I haven't gone into all of that yet. So I'm either going to do that as we go, or maybe one day I'll go through and find a bunch But yeah, we ended up watching one for the Celts already, and they really enjoyed that. Also found one on the Ajanta caves in India, which is really, really cool. So just, you know what? That one was on YouTube, so I will definitely link that one below. I also still have the Story of the World Volume 2 activity book, and the Curiosity Chronicles curriculum I have has an activity book that's in digital form. So I will be using both of those as well. And I probably will go through week by week and kind of decide what we're using from each of those to supplement. Ideally, I would do at least like several weeks at a time, but I can kind of see myself just most of the time. It'll probably be week by week. If you were watching my prior planning videos, you know I was using this as a spine, Story of the World Volume 2, and going from there. And I had expressed some concerns, mainly about the lack of Native Americans before Columbus, and so I had planned to take an entire month off for that. However, I have changed plans because in the meantime, as I was in the midst of planning and doing some self-reflecting on how I can be better and do better with my kids as far as teaching history of the world, this, while it is a great resource, it is clearly from a Christian perspective, and I like to teach my kids from a secular perspective. So if you're looking for a Christian perspective, you know, that's fine. But for me, I wanted something that was a little more secular, and also this is very Eurocentric. I mean, it does cover some, like the Gupta Empire in India and some other areas of the world, but it is very heavy on Europe, and that is really what the classical teaching model that she's coming from was. So that's just what it is. So while I was, befriending people on Instagram and, and following other great YouTubers, I found some other great resources, and I really just felt compelled to incorporate them. So that is what I'm doing. The first one I want to share with you, I've already mentioned, is Curiosity Chronicles. And I got their snapshots of medieval history. They currently have ancient, medieval, and I think they have the first half of their early modern done, and they're just coming out now with their second half of early modern. I'm not sure if it's going to be in two separate purchases or if they will combine it all. But it's a little different than Story of the World. Story of the World is told in story form, obviously, and it's very short chapters. This is told in dialogue form. The chapters aren't super long, but and I got the digital version mainly because I was really impatient. And then I did print it all out, which did use a lot of ink. So it probably would be more cost effective to have another place printed out. But I was just impatient. So, you know, it's fine. Ted and Mona have a dialogue throughout the whole book. And then there's some other characters who pop in as well, I believe for the Renaissance. But it's a different format than Story of the World, which I don't think is necessarily good or bad. It's just different. And so they also have audio, and because it is a dialogue, I might try to use the audio version of this more. With Story of the World, they do also have the audio version, which is Jim Weiss, so it's awesome. But I tend to like to read that one aloud to my kids so I can pause and have them narrate. So we'll see how it goes. I do have the physical copy, so I could read it to them, but we're going to try the audiobook for this one. And this one, they cover many of the same things, but a couple things that I noticed. Curiosity Chronicles covers more of other areas of the world than Story of the World does. So Story of the World, I don't want to make just blanket statements here because I don't want to be wrong on this for you. But there's like a couple chapters on, I think there's maybe one on medieval Africa, and there's like one on African kingdoms. There's basically one on the combination of the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas. And the Mayans were actually much earlier than the Aztecs and the Incas, so that felt weird to me in and of itself. There's nothing on the North American native tribes pre-Columbus, and then there's just a lot on Europe. Whereas Curiosity Chronicles comes back to Africa and different areas and times in Africa several times. And remember, again, we're going from approximately 500 to 1600. That is a really long time. So I mean, not as long as ancient history covered, but it's a significant time. So there were different things happening in every part of the world pretty much during that time period. So they come back to that several times. They actually did the Mayans before in their ancient history. It seems like they did it during their ancient history curriculum. And then they have separate chapters for the Incas and the Aztecs, as well as separate chapters for the tribes in North America. There's 2 on tribes in North America. And then another thing that is a big difference for me that I just want to address is the words we use. So again, like I don't think this is like directly offensive. And I do think it's a great resource. So I don't want to say not to use it, because to be honest, I'm going to use both. My kids do enjoy it and I will use both. But there are times that I found where if I have to kind of explain things, or I might put things in different words. And one example that really stood out to me here is chapter 12 in here is called The Islamic Invasion. And earlier she has the rise of Islam and Islam becomes an empire. And I do appreciate that she is covering this. However, first of all, I don't want to look at Islam from a Christian point of view. So I already was bringing in more resources on that area, knowing that was kind of a trouble spot. But just the language of that and the Islamic invasion versus the age of the Crusades is how the Crusades is mentioned. It's not the invasion of the Christians. So I feel like in some ways words do matter. Whereas in Curiosity Chronicles, the language is the caliphs expand. And it also more directly talks about the Islamic Golden Age, which is really what was happening there. So basically, I'm just really impressed with Curiosity Chronicles. I think it fits better what I am looking for, but I was hesitant to leave this behind. So because my kids really enjoyed it. So, and I already have it. So for right now, I'm using both. However, in the future, I might actually not do Story of the World anymore, knowing that these other great resources do exist. We're gonna see how it goes this year. So after going into that, since I've now gotten through an explanation of why I'm also using Curiosity Chronicles here, I decided to use Curiosity Chronicles as my primary spine. However, like I said earlier, like there were a few things that were in their ancient curriculum that weren't in Story of the World, or a couple things that I just wanted to cover. So first few weeks are actually, we're not starting Curiosity Chronicles until week 3, I believe. And the first 2 weeks, we're going to be covering things like the Celts and the Mayans and the Gupta Empire, which is another thing that I believe was covered in their ancient, just because the years, a lot of those crossed over for many years around, the turn of BC to AD. It's just a curriculum choice of where you put it. And since we had the other curriculum and this one did it differently, I'm just adjusting there. And so we are reading Story of the World for some of those, and some of those I have other resources for as well. So that's what I decided to do. And then I went through on my computer, I made a list on a Google spreadsheet of all of the chapters in Curiosity Chronicles and their topics. And then I went through and I figured out what we were doing each week. So most weeks will just be one, and some will be combined more than one chapter. And then I put in chapters of Story of the World where they fit in. It's interesting because we're jumping around the world and things are happening at the same time. It's not necessarily obvious what order you put them in. It's really a choice of the curriculum. So they were really not in the same order for many things. But I just went in and inserted Story of the World where it matched up with that topic of Curiosity Chronicles. And then as you saw on my plan here, I also inserted before Columbus, and then other picture books and activities. I just want to finish this video up with sharing a few more resources with you that I found. So the first is Pandia Press has secular science and history curriculum. We are actually currently using their Life, which is their biology curriculum for grades. I think it's targeted at grades 1 through 3. So we're using that now mainly with my second grader, but the kindergartners tagging along. But they also have a history curriculum. And for years they've had History Odyssey. And this uses Story of the World as a spine and basically does what I was doing on my own, which is, putting in order, putting in other resources to go with it. And then also it kind of took out the things that were mainly just from biblical sources and didn't have other historical sources. And I did that myself as well. I didn't do the biblical based chapters when we were doing the ancient story of the world. So they've had History Odyssey, and they have, I believe they still have that available, and that's aimed again at elementary school kids. But I think they were looking for using something that wasn't Story of the World, and so they actually created their own, but it is based on that same format of Story of the World. So last year, in the middle of the year, I ended up picking this up to check it out. So this is History Quest Early Times, and this is basically their ancient history. And it covers a lot of the same things as Story of the World. The chapters are longer is the only downside for me. And it is secular. So if you are somebody like me who prefers secular resources for things like history, this is a great alternative to Story of the World, which is from a Christian perspective. Again, the chapters are a little bit longer, but I do like that they each include what's called a history hop at the end of the chapter. And the history hop, it brings you, the story is told as if you were going back in time and meeting somebody from that time period, usually a famous person. And I thought those were really well done. But again, like it's, you can actually see, this is obviously, this is volume 2 and this is ancient history, but this was about the length of the ancient one. And so you can see there's a vast difference in size there. These chapters are much longer, and so not as fast to get through. Now, I did just peek on their website, and they say that their medieval times one is coming out this fall. And I don't know what this fall means, but I will be keeping my eye out for that. I don't know if I'll be including it because I have so many other resources, but I may just pick up a copy and see. They also have an activity guide that goes with it, much like Story of the World. And I didn't get it for this because we did already have the Story of the World activity guide. So, but I will have this linked below in case it is something you are interested in. Again, they have ancient history, and they're just coming out with their medieval history this year. And then I assume they're going to do the rest of history, but they just haven't gotten to it yet. The other amazing curriculum I found I really want to mention is called Oh Freedom, and it is by Woke Homeschooling, and this is something I printed and bound myself. I got the digital version of it. And this is by Delina Price McFall. I really hope I'm saying that right. But she is another homeschooling mom who just wanted something better. And this is specifically U.S. history, I should say that. This is specifically U.S. history, and it's aimed at grades 3 through 7. And so I will be using this more in future years. However, I wanted to get it this year just so I could look at some of the early, we'll say pre-Columbus, pre-colonization chapters. So I am using resources from this from weeks 1 and 2. And this is fantastic. Now, this isn't a curriculum that's, you read from. This is basically an outline for you that uses other resources. It has a book list in here. The main books it uses are before Columbus. So that's where I got the idea for this one and why I am incorporating this one this year. And I also have the book 1491 by the same author, which is written for adults. And I feel like I started it years ago and didn't finish it. So I will probably pick that back up for myself. But as a parent, or if you have like a high schooler, that would also be a really good resource to throw in. The other books are Young People's History of the United States, Columbus to the War on Terror, and by Howard Zinn and Rebecca Steffoff. And I ordered myself that, but the used copy I ordered hasn't come yet. So I'll maybe insert a picture here and it will be linked below. And then I did also get A Different Mirror for Young People, which I think is over here. Right up there it is. A different mirror for young people. So again, these are books that were written for adults that they just kind of made a little bit easier for kids. They are aimed more, I think, at like middle and high school ages, but I am comfortable reading these aloud in short increments to my kids. I will not be reading the whole thing through. And honestly, this one in the Young People's History of the United States is probably going to be saved more so for future years. I just wanted to get my hands on them now to see if there was resources in here for me to incorporate. And there are lots of other books listed here, including chapter books, historical fiction. She has music and videos also recommended. But again, it goes through all of U.S. history, so I will not be going into that in detail at this time, but I really wanted to share this, especially if you're doing like U.S. history or that early modern time period with your kids, and you have, older elementary or middle school kids. This is really, really a great option And I just really appreciate all the work she put into making it. So I wanted to make sure to mention it to the rest of you. And this year I will also be doing a timeline again, just like I did last year. I made a new timeline. Last year what I did is I got little black line, I found basically coloring pages for the different things I wanted to put on the timeline and printed them out really small, had the kids color them in and put them on. The Curiosity Chronicles actually has a timeline card supplement or expansion. They have timeline cards that you can use. And so I'm going to be using some of those, and then I might add in some of my own. I want to make sure that our artists and composers that we're studying this year make it on there, as well as maybe some other things that they don't have timeline cards for. But I do appreciate that those are already there, so that will be really helpful for me. I think that's everything I wanted to share with you today. I hope that was helpful or gave you some insight into what I am doing for history. And I will be coming out with some more videos on an update on what I'm doing with the various curriculum planning. And hopefully I will be making some videos on just generally what my curriculum is this year. Just maybe some people don't want to watch the whole curriculum planning series, but want to know what I'm doing. As always, any questions or comments, happy to hear them in the comment section below. Click that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, if you want to make sure you don't miss any content, click that bell, which is notifications, and just lets you know when I have a new video out. That's it for my medieval history planning. I am sure I will bring you along on some of our history adventures throughout the year. And I still have a few ancient history adventures to catch you up on. But until then, I hope you are all healthy and well and having fun with your kids, and I will talk to you later.